who killed JFK and why?
Well, what I know is that it wasn't Oswald. It was a cabal. The best book on this is written by James Douglas, Douglas with two S's on the end. It's called JFK and The Unspeakable. Now, you may not have heard of it because it didn't get reviewed. This is typical. And you know, the burden is to overcome people who say, you're just a conspiracy theorist. You know, that's what they say to my friends in New York. I'm out of New York City. When they talk about 9/11. Now, I don't know exactly what happened on 9/11, but I know some very good friends. I have a cousin that perished on the top of one of those buildings. I know some very good friends who are working really, really hard to find out what happened, okay? And to think that they would be called conspiracy theorists simply for trying to find out what happened, you know, that really galls me. The more so since the 9/11 Commission, a year after they finished, the two authors said, you know, we were set up to fail. Right. Both of them, Hamilton and Kane. We weren't given enough money, weren't given enough people, we weren't given enough time, we weren't given enough access to secret information. So we were set up to fail. Well, hello, that's really neat that they tell us that a year after they finished the commission, right? So there's a lot of truth to be gained. Now, where did this conspiracy theory appellation originate? As far as I know, it really got going right after John Kennedy was assassinated. How come? Well, John Kennedy had a really bad experience with the CIA and specifically with Allen Dulles, the director. Allen tricked him into approving the Bay of Pigs fiasco in the hope that he could mousetrap JFK into sending US armed forces to rescue those people once they got bogged down on the beach. And Kennedy was later heard to say he would split, if he could, he'd split the CIA into 1,000 pieces and throw it to the wind. Then, wonder of wonders, he cashiered. He fired Dulles. Now, you don't fire a guy like Dulles, whose brother was a Secretary of State, who was connected with all the banks and all the law firms, you know, that are worth mentioning. You know, I don't do that. Okay, so what am I saying? Well, after John Kennedy was killed, they set up this Warren Commission. Lyndon Johnson did. Warren, of course, was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at one time. And then they recruited members. And who did they pick first? A fellow named Allen Dulles. And a lot of people said, now, wait a second, a little conflict of interest there. A lot of us are thinking maybe Allen Dulles had something to do with this. And then they said, guess what? Conspiracy theorist, conspiracy theorist, conspiracy theorists. Now, if you read James Douglas's book, and he was in receipt of all the previous research, Oliver Stone, for example, thinks that James Douglas's book is the creme de la creme, and so do I. You'll see that there was a cabal. There was a bunch of folks that thought that John Kennedy was being soft on communism. He was pulling troops out of Vietnam, was going to let Southeast Asia go to the communists. The domino theory, Indonesia would go. And they also had some real animus toward the fellow who fired a lot of them. So the evidence is compelling. And the reason we don't know chapter and verse, of course, is that there are still secret documents in the FBI and the CIA files. Now, some of you probably know this, but about 3 years ago, a fellow named Trump, Donald Trump, he used to be president, he got up and he said, congressional legislation requires me to release the rest of the correspondence having to do with John Kennedy's assassination from the FBI and the CIA. So he said that about 10 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he got up, same podium, and said, correction, the FBI and the CIA said that we can't release those documents. So we're going to release them in 6 months. So McGovern takes a little note, 6 months in his calendar. And what happens after 6 months? Well, I remember because I wrote it down on my calendar. No journalists remembered. Nobody asked. Nobody asked. That's how bad it is, folks. Those documents are still secreted, if they're not already destroyed, in the bowels of the CIA and the FBI. And you don't have to be a dare I say conspiracy theorist to think that there was a conspiracy and that this was a turning point in history. In my short life, 82 years next week, John Kennedy's assassination, 9/11, maybe Russiagate are really turning points in our political milieu here and in my political life and my life as an intelligence analyst.